Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I want to take a chance to shout out my last episode 118, and that was titled Wake Up, and it was with Zane Propertier, his first appearance back on the podcast since episode 54, I believe, and it was for his album release titled 1030, and we titled it Wake Up because it was referring to a conversation that he had with his grandfather, because his grandfather would constantly call him and tell him to wake up in the morning when he was younger. And it inspired his album. We talked about that and why he created the album, and talked about his album release party. We talked a little bit about mental health stuff in there as well. It was a great podcast. Please support him and check out his album 1030, available on all major platforms. And he donates a lot of his proceeds back to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is a fucking amazing thing. So please go tune into that stuff. I would really appreciate that. And I know he would too as well. You could check that episode out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, you could search The Carroll Connection or Jared Carroll on YouTube, and it should pop up right for you. That would be amazing if you guys go check that out. Subscribe if you can. And if anyone wants to come on the podcast and be a guest, I'm always looking for new guests. So as we gear up for the end of the year in 2023, I will be looking to find new people who want to come on the podcast. So if you guys want to DM me, text me, however you guys want to reach out, I will respond and we could figure out some time and schedule. I try to do 3 weeks in advance to give everyone plenty of time. Obviously, this time of the year, the flu, COVID, things are kind of ramping up and it's a crazy time. And that brings us to episode 119, titled A Birthday Reflection, year 27. As you guys know, I like to kind of bring in this year talking about how I've been going through this process, podcasting, everything that I've been doing, just reflecting on another year passing, as I like to release these on my birthday best I can. I've been lucky. They've been falling on like weekends and stuff, so it works well with my posting schedule. And I'll also talk a little bit about my Ireland trip as well. Kind of recap that. I know I've been not posting for 2 weeks. I was in Ireland, so you guys will hear a little bit about that. If I'm a little bit congested or I sound that way, I did catch COVID out there, so, and I caught it pretty bad, and some of my family members are testing positive since, so kind of an interesting thing. It's just going around. It's crazy, but that brings us to, obviously, this episode 27. Blessed to see 27. I'm very grateful for everything that has happened this past year. Just huge thank you to anyone who wishes me happy birthday, anyone who supports me in any type of way, whether you've been a guest on the podcast, whether you've listened to a podcast, whether you just like and share my post on Instagram or Facebook, whatever it may be. I appreciate all the support and the love, and without that, I don't think I'd be able to have a podcast and do what I do. So obviously it's my birthday, but I want to say thank you to you guys, because I wouldn't do half the stuff if I didn't have people that listened and cared and supported it. So I appreciate that. I'm very grateful to reach 27. It's an interesting age because obviously you're getting closer to 30, but like I'm becoming more reflective as time goes by, and I really appreciate the little things and my alone time and being able to kind of just step back from things. Um, Earlier in the podcast stages, I would have been a little bit maybe more aggressive with my emotions and a little bit more upfront with exposing stuff. And I just want to take a step back. I want to be more patient. I want to be more reflective on the way I go about my business. And I've definitely been doing that this year. This year has been a roller coaster of emotions for myself. And year 26 was interesting because it was kind of like a step back based on like the chaotic the last like 2 years since 2020, as I've talked about on several episodes of just what I've went through the pandemic, and whether it was my romantic life or my actual personal life, things were just very crazy for me. And this past year, it was just kind of like a step back for once. It was really about me. And I took time for myself, I would say, this year. And I was able to kind of process a lot of things that I haven't been able to process before. And even with the loss of my dog, that was a huge, huge thing that happened this summer. And I've been still trying to process that. It still sucks. There's a lot of time where I'm looking and I'm just like, damn, I really wish she was still here. And I'm kind of going through that grieving process still. I even got a tattoo of her paw print on my left leg, and I look at it often, and it's a tough thing because it was like she was a part of my family, and not having her has been difficult and it's been weird because like even when I came home from my Ireland trip, like I would have loved to just cuddle with my dog, and she wasn't there. So it's been a year of growth for sure, though, because this podcast is we've now eclipsed 3 years of recording. I think the release date is a little bit the release date of this podcast in 2019 was like no like late mid to late November, but I had a when I was in Ireland, I had a snap memory pop up of me and Eric Lazito recording episode one in his garage, and I sent it to him today actually, and we kind of just laughed, and it was just kind of like crazy to reflect on. I've just been doing this for over 3 years, and we're going to be entering year four of doing this podcast, and I'm excited to see what year four will bring because I think I'm ready to step into possibly doing this a little bit more virtual side of things on social media. I've watched a lot of Twitch streamers and stuff like that, and I think the next phase of this podcast would be to go that route. And I have a lot of people I've met through the social media wave that I would love to actually interview and have on the podcast and talk to them about what they do and why they do what they do. And I think it would be cool for a lot of you guys that do listen to maybe my solo episodes or you tune into different episodes of people who I know and or you know to hear people with a different perspective from a different place. And that is something that I'm working towards, and I'm really hopeful to dive into. Um, but we'll see how things go. It's definitely going to be an interesting path for me to take. Hopefully, bring a lot more people back as well. Um, but yeah, this past year has been very interesting for me because it's really been about patience, and I always like really emphasize patience on this podcast, but this past year was all about that because there wasn't a lot of chaos going on in my life where I felt like I was on the go a lot or I was defending my emotions or expressing my emotions in some type of way. It was really actually more about healing and planning, looking towards the future, where I want to take things, and being more appreciative of the guests that I have or the conversations that I have, talking to different people, talking to new people, catching up with old people. It's been a roller coaster of a year, and I'm appreciative for every single thing that has happened this past year. And I love being able to do these type of podcasts on my birthday to reflect another year of growth and share that with people and be vulnerable. And I think it's important not only for this podcast but for myself to be able to have these episodes to reflect on later in life. And I look forward to that, to be able to see the growth each year of what I was personally going through and how I was able to overcome that. Because each year is different and you're going to have new trials and tribulations every single year, and you have to be able to adapt and overcome. That's something that's been really big this past year of getting more back into kind of like my masculine and just like accepting some things are the way they are, and you have to kind of just strap your bootstraps on or whatever the saying is and just kind of fucking go get it. And I've really kind of just been more into that energy lately and kind of just more just I'm going to do what I do and I'm going to get after it. There's no excuses. No one's going to come save you. It's all about what are you going to do next? No one's going to do it for you. You have to just do it. And I know I kind of always harp on the just do it mindset, or even when I ask people about the please don't end with like just do it quotes about chasing your passions and stuff like that. But in reality, it is the truth though. Like, I mean, no one's going to do this for you. No one's going to do this podcast stuff for you. No one's going to do this YouTube stuff for you. No one's going to do that fitness stuff for you. Like, it's all about how are you going to move forward and how are you going to be your best self? Because at the end of the day, you're all you have. Let's be real about this. Like, it's not like, and we talked about this on the last podcast with Zane. Like, people are going to support you. Yeah, that's the truth. But at the end of the day, if you're not the one being your loudest advocate and being your biggest advocate, you're probably going to fail, to be straight up with you, because most people aren't going to rally behind what you do. They're not going to rally behind you until you actually succeed and like you have like a platform for yourself. So it's kind of like a consistent grind it out. Like, I'm going to come do this podcast. I'm going to do it day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out. And here I am, episode 119, another birthday reflection. We did it. And that's something to be proud of, because not a lot of people can stick to what they say they're going to do. And when I started this podcast, I was going to express myself in a way and learn how to communicate with people in a better way. And I think I've done that. I think I've come on here every single week and tried to get better. And I hope that you guys are able to see that in the growth of like the way I handle myself as a host. And I always look for constructive criticism where it may lie. And I appreciate those people who do give that to me. And you guys are valued and appreciated, especially when it comes from my guest, where they try to give me some tips or where they think that it could be better to help the show. And I think that's really important, because I don't do these type of solo episodes often. And I've been listening a lot to the Ever Changing Vibe, actually. Shout out to Wally. And if he listens to this, he'll get a kick out of it. But like, he's really been back on like, I'm going to do it for me type mindset. And that really motivates me in a lot of ways, because when I hear him go on his rants and talk about what he talks about, he just does podcasting and you could just tell he likes what he does. And like, he's just not, doesn't care who listens. And like, it's always hard to keep that mindset when you have a podcast, because like, you want people to listen, you want people to care about what you do. I think that's part of human nature. But to kind of just shake that for a little bit and just be you and be yourself, I think that's really cool, and I really like that. So please go support Ever Changing Vibe. He's an amazing content creator, and I look forward to more collabs with him as well. I also want to shout the Spawncast, Eli. Hopefully got a collab with him coming too at the end of the month. We'll see. Hopefully things align with our schedules, but he's been killing it with his podcast. He's been growing on social media, especially Instagram. And I always look at people like that because it's like healthy competition. And we've talked about that before. And I think that's really helped me grow in year 20, year 26, going into year 27, because like, you do kind of hit a wall with this podcasting thing. And I think all content creators go through it, where it's like, all right, here we go again. We're going to make the same type of video or the same type of podcast or the same type of TikTok. And like, you get kind of stagnant. And I literally made an episode earlier this year called Feeling Stuck. And anyone that listened to that episode could hear that kind of just like day-to-day grind was kind of getting to me. And I think that's part of just like the whole mental health aspect, where you have to see that feeling arise in yourself and kind of power through it. And I think I've done that. I rarely missed episodes this year. I really kind of stuck to that grind and kind of pushed through that. And I hope you guys were able to see that. And I try to motivate where I can. And I've learned that through the years of podcasting, through the years of playing sports, and just trying to be a better person day in and day out. And while I share my life and share my perspective on things, I try to encourage others to do the same in whatever field or career path or whatever industry that they're in, because I think it's important to have an outlet for yourself. And I've always said that on this podcast, that this is my outlet. And I'm really happy to be doing the solo episode and reflecting on my birthday and just seeing how much I've grown, because you never know where we end up in life. And to be able to continually do this is something that I'm proud of. I'm something I'm very proud of, actually. And I don't say that too often. And I think that's part of this growth process that I've had within myself, is being more grateful for the platform that I've created, because I can sit behind a mic any day of the week and just record. And the confidence to do that has been created over these last several years. And I'm just extremely grateful. I mean, if you read some of the birthday posts that I've had over the last few years, it's been about this progress and about this patience. And this year's really about that, was like getting back to the basics, enjoying what I do. And that's important. If you don't enjoy what you do, what's the point? You're going to struggle. You're not going to feel that excitement when you get behind a microphone or get behind a camera or whatever you do in life that fuels your fire, that passion. Because when you don't have that, everything's kind of lackluster and it falls apart. And I think that's part of the grind too, is you're gonna have that wave of just like uncertainty, but it's getting back on that's super important. And that's what I've been about this past year. Um, Year 27, looking forward to a lot of great things. It's a really big year for me. Like I said, mentioning trying to get into virtual podcasting. I'm actually looking at buying homes, getting more tattoos. So we'll see what happens. I'm not too sure what will happen this year. I should probably make another vision board for 2023. As you guys know, I usually do a year in review episode 2, so we'll see who I can get to kind of hop on an episode with me during the end of the year as well. And in terms of recapping the Ireland trip, wow, what a fucking trip! We went all over Ireland. Went to Dublin, went to Cork, went to Galway, went to Killarney. I think that was, and then a bunch of small towns and villages in between. And we rented a van. It was me, my brother James, the third. He's been on this podcast as well before. My brother Jordan, my dad, my uncle, Jake Wickham. He's been on the podcast multiple times, and Dylan Wickham, my cousin's obviously been on the podcast before as well. And what a fucking trip! The first 5 days were just action fucking packed, like just like place to place, doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Like we left on Friday night, 21st of October. And then we got there, it was Saturday in Dublin, and barely slept in the plane. We had the Jameson tour, we had the Guinness tour, like obviously touring the distillery factory, and drinking just right away. Literally no fucking sleep. And there was a UFC fight with Sean O'Malley that we really wanted to see later in that day. And also Charles Oliveira versus Islam. We're like, yeah, it started at 7 over there. We're like, yeah, we can make it. We just gotta make it to there. And my brother James was just like, we cannot fall asleep on the plane, or like we cannot fall asleep. We can't take any naps. We just gotta power through it. Just power through it. And we fucking made that fight. I don't know how we did it. We just drank and like barely fucking like one eye open, like watching the fights, like in this crazy bar. It was packed. And as soon as the fight was over, like it started getting busy, but like we were fucking KO'd at that point. We headed back to the hotel and stuff like that. And it was just crazy. It was a great fucking time. Like then we went to Galway. In Galway, on the way to Galway too, we stopped at two of Ireland's oldest pubs, had a beer there. I've learned that I actually kind of like Guinness too, which is kind of like crazy because I hated like thick ass beer like that. But when you taste the real shit, low key kind of fire. Low key kind of fire. And people who like drinking beer are probably like, yeah, it's obviously fire, but I'm not a beer drinker. I'm not an alcohol drinker, as a lot of you guys know now. But kind of liked it, and maybe I'll have it a little bit more. We'll see. But I went to Galway, and in Galway, when shit hit the fucking fan, like we went out Sunday, we saw Red Zone in the TV, on TV in a bar. Like, all right, let's go there. We'll have a couple of drinks and just kind of like relax. Turned into the fucking most lit night. Everyone got fucked up in the group. Like my dad and uncle drinking with dudes from Wales, like me, James, Dylan, fucking Jake, Jordan getting fucking slammed. Like I wasn't even gonna drink like that. I got slammed. Crazy fucking experience. Then we went to the Cliffs of Moher. Beautiful out there. And like for Ireland's extremely rainy. We had a lot of sunny days. Like, and it was supposed to rain like almost the entire trip, and we had a lot of sun, which was fucking lit. And trip was going pretty well. And then they were gonna golf Wednesday, and me and James, we don't like to golf, so we were like, yeah, we're gonna do a hike. Hike was fucking dope. It was rainy going up the mountain, but we expected that. Just the landscape of the mountain is so different. Obviously, you guys know, if you listen to me, I love hiking, and to be able to hike in Ireland was fucking just so awesome. Just to see the whole landscape, everything is just so flat and green. obviously it rains a lot, so like the grass is really green, and it was a cool experience just for us to kind of bond and like just be up there in the mountain and do all that stuff by ourselves was like really cool. And obviously when we're hiking the mountain too, there's just sheep just fucking everywhere. It was just it was crazy. It was cool. James didn't have hiking boots. I brought my boots. He just had running shoes. Absolute disaster. Those shoes were left behind, ruined. Um Hell of an experience. And then right after that, I got started getting a little sore throat going into the evening. I was like, yeah, after I had dinner, had a couple beers, I was like, I don't feel too great. Went back Thursday, went to the pharmacy, grabbed some like kind of like their version of Dayquil, and then like went to see Ross Castle, beautiful castle on the lake on a lake over there with mountain view. By the end of it, your boy was cooked, and I definitely ended up having a fever. And we didn't know what I kind of knew it was probably going to be COVID, and we just didn't do any tests or anything like that. But obviously, being all close together in a group for an entire trip, everyone kind of got a little bit sick. I mean, we didn't find out until after we got home on Monday, this past Monday, that Uncle tested positive, Jake tested positive, fucking my dad tested positive. So most likely I had COVID, which kind of sucked. That's why I'm still kind of a little bit congested up. I'm a little bit tired, trying to get over jet lag as well, trying to record this episode. But that trip was amazing. It was my first vacation since like 2019, just to be able to take a break from everything, from podcasting, from TikTok, from just life in general. Really needed it. And I'm excited to get back into obviously doing this podcast. I have episodes lined up. We'll try to finish this year really strong going into the holidays. We'll take my holiday break per usual. But yeah, seeing another country always puts things in perspective, how much I actually do appreciate living in the United States. Love Ireland. It was a beautiful country. It was cool to see like parts, like obviously my ancestors came back from there. Carroll gift shops everywhere. I got a little even keychain with the Carroll family crest on it with the details behind it, which is awesome. I love that. But it was just cool to be out there with my family and just experience Ireland. And I don't know, traveling is just a must. If you haven't traveled recently, you definitely should book your next vacation. Use your PTO, experience something new. It's always important to get out there and just see something different, and it helps put things in perspective. So always encourage that. But I think we're gonna start wrapping this up too. Year 27, a lot of things to be excited for and look forward to. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful and appreciative for the life that I have. Thank you to anyone who's wished me happy birthday. I always appreciate you guys showing love and support for me. This podcast would not be anything without you guys. It's taught me so many valuable life lessons. I've heard so many amazing stories, and to see everyone come on here and just share their life and what they've gone through and why they do what they do, you can't ask for anything better out of life. And I saw a video recently. I think I forget they were talking about the Egyptians and heaven. What were the questions the first two questions they asked is, did you experience joy? And the second one is, did you bring joy to others? And when I really thought about that, I thought about this podcast and how it brings me joy. And when people who come on talk about their experience on this podcast and how they felt joy coming on here and all the support they've received from their friends and family, hearing them speak about themselves and their life, that's all you can ask for. So when you're thinking about your life, you're thinking about what you bring to the table, try to do things that bring joy to others as well as yourself. That's all that really matters in this life. Are you having fun? Are you experiencing happiness? Are you sharing that with others? That's all that matters. Focus on that, focus on your friends, focus on your family, and focus on your health. That's all you can really do. Everything else is out of your control. Don't worry about the extra stuff. Be patient. You're gonna have ups and downs in life. That's normal. Don't freak out. Prioritize your mental health, prioritize your physical health. Express your emotions when you can. Go to therapy if you need it. Help is always there. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast. I appreciate you guys who listen to this solo episode. I don't really love doing these, but it's always important to do these just to kind of show my face, show kind of what I've been going through, and just talk about that openly. So Please check out all my other episodes. I have so many great guests that have been on here. I have great guests coming. Check it out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you search Carroll Connection on YouTube or just Jared Carroll, it should pop right up if you like to watch your podcast. I don't think there's anything else to kind of talk about. Again, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. So, till next time, guys. Peace.